Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about an important concept from evolution. So we will discuss about chemical evolution. So we can divide evolution to understand in a better way. We can study in two parts evolution. One is origin of life. The second one is evolution of life. Okay, we study under two parts to understand. What evolution actually. Okay, coming to evolution, what we can define evolution as a gradual change that takes place in organisms during that means over a period of time. So the gradual changes that takes place in organisms over a period of time, and produces variations in the organisms to produce different types of species is called the evolution. Okay, so evolution can be defined as a gradual changes that takes place in the organism in order to so that it produces diversified organisms or the species. But coming to this evolution of life, okay, the theories like Darwinism, Lamarckianism, which tried to explain how the life evolved. That means how the different species were formed from the previous life. So that what explained by the Lamarckism or even the Darwinism or neo-Darwinism and everything, but none of them or none of these theories could explain how the life initially started on the earth. Okay, so before knowing how that different species life forms formed from these starting life, so we should understand how the life initially how the life began on earth. Okay, in order to understand how the life began on earth, even we should understand how that planets different planets were formed, because the origin of life could be understood well when we understand the formation of the earth, the other planets. Okay, coming to this origin of life, this origin of life is also called chemical evolution. Okay, and this evolution of life is called the organic evolution. So we can divide the evolution into two categories broadly: chemical evolution, and the other one is organic evolution. Okay, now let's see what are the theories that supports the chemical evolution. So the chemical evolution, so as part of chemical evolution, we study about Oparin Haldane, who supports that life originates from the originates from chemicals, that means organic molecules. Whereas this theories that supports organic evolution, which believes that no, these theories, they believe that life life might be created by the god. Okay, life might be created by the god. So two uh, theories are completely different, but no, regarding formation of life, okay, theories that supports organic evolution. So because they did not have much information make any to make a statement on a formation of life, so they simply said that life is formed by the god, or life is created by the god. So whereas this chemical evolution, that means the theories that supports the chemical evolution, that states that life started from the organic molecules. Okay, the title of this particular we uh, figure, you can see that's the domino effect, the planetary domino effect, because uh, what domino effect actually explains that no, every incident, okay, results in another consequence, or that it affects the other incidents to happen. So that like whatever that result of the incident again becomes triggering point for the another event. So like that, it's we see a series of events to take place in the formation of the life. So that's why we say it's a domino effect. Let's see how life started. So to know that origin of life, so we should understand, as I said, no, we should understand even the formation of the earth. So to understand the formation of earth, so we should understand even the formation of the other planets, so let's see how the other all the solar system formed or created. Okay, so when we see the solar system formation, so where initially, before formation of all the planets including sun, there was a cloud. So this cloud contains some solid objects and gaseous molecules. So in this condition, structure, they named solar nebula. So before formation of the solar system, there was just a cloud with this solid rocks and all. So it's a gas with rocks, it's a rotating gas cloud. It's a rotating gas cloud was present. Then this rotating gas cloud undergone some it undergone some changes because of the gravitational forces. So because of gravitational forces, all these solid rocks, they started concentrating at a center position. So because of the gravity force, and during the process of concentrating at the center, okay, there were collisions between these rocks, okay, or the solid solid objects, okay. And because of that, a center at the center point of this solar nebula. So at the center point of the solar nebula, the sun was formed. Okay, sun formed at the center part of the this solar nebula. So the sun formed around 5 billion years ago. 5 billion years ago. Okay. Later, 5 crores of years. Later, 5 crores of years. So after formation of the sun at the center, remaining gaseous cloud, still some gases, that cloud is still some cloud present around this center around the center of the sun. Okay, this particular disk around this sun is called planet decimals. So this part is called planet decimals. So this planet decimals is still had gas and some small objects still. And these small objects further, they started forming again some planet structures. They are called planet decimals. So these planet decimals formed different planets. Okay, one such a planet formed was Earth. Okay, so it happened around in the 4.6 billion years ago. That means after formation of the sun, around after 5 crores years of the formation of the sun, so the earth formed. Okay, so during this stage, the earth was very young. So because the earth was very young, so it yeah, before at the time of nebula, we should understand what the chemical composition of this solar nebula. This solar nebula has hydrogen, helium gases, and also it has some gases like, even some nitrogen, sulfur, such gases. It had. And the rocks, as I said, no, these rocks had some heavy elements in them, like iron, magnesium, sulfur, such elements were there. Okay, during the aggregation of all these rocks and in formation of the sun. So all these hydrogen, helium, and they become part of this inside this particular sun, and also the part of the other planets. Okay, so at the when the sun was very young, so this young sun, it pushed all the gases which were that was present around this center part of that means around the space. So when sun was formed, and around when the all the other planets were formed, still some gases were there. So all this gas was pushed by this particular the sun by solar winds. So these solar winds forced all the gases molecules which were that gases molecules that were present in the that were present in the space. Okay. Once the earth was formed, okay, because of the meteorite collision with this earth, okay, part of the earth, okay, part of earth dissociated from the this planet, and that became the moon also. Okay. So even these meteorites and all these they were created by the substances, or I can say no, that objects, the solid objects present in the solar nebula. So apart from the formation of these planets, so all these meteorites were formed by the solar nebula only. Okay. So during the formation of this particular thing, no, as I said, no, that when solar nebula at the initial stage, it had hydrogen, it had nitrogen, it had helium. So all those gases molecules are present, and also some elements were present. So even we see when we look into the earth, so inside of the earth also some elements we could see. So we could see inside the core part, we could see the elements like no, even in the inside of this earth we could see element like no iron. We can see iron, and also the nickel, because these are heavy metals. So during the aggregation, during the concentration of these solid particles in the solar nebula, during the formation of this earth, so because of the gravitational force and all those things, okay, the temperature was very high, so that all this iron and nickel, which are heavy in nature, okay, they so because of these high temperatures, so these iron and nickel, they turned into a liquid. Okay. So the core part of the earth contains this nickel and ferrous in a it's a liquid form. Okay. Because of this, the earth got this magnetic field. Okay. So because of this magnetic field, so whatever we said, no, that solar winds comes from the sun. Okay. That cannot enter inside of the earth atmosphere because of this magnetic field. Okay. So this is in the core region. When we see in the mantle and the crust region, when we see the mantle and crust region, so the mantle and crust has some light elements like magnesium and sulfur. Such light elements were present in the earth. Okay. So the important thing is that, okay, the earth was in this condition inside of this earth, completely the iron and nickel that were in a completely in a liquid condition. Okay. During this condition, okay, this earth, which has no, as I said, no, this core part has in a liquid condition. Okay. This liquid core part, it started ejecting outside in the form of the volcanic eruptions. You can see this is a completely a magnetic field which comes because of this one. Okay. And also that resulted in see some volcanic eruptions. So through these volcanic eruptions, all those metals are elements which are present inside of the core region, okay, they started releasing into the atmosphere or the outer surface of the earth. So this because of this, so the earth atmosphere had gases like hydrogen, helium, and also the carbon dioxide. Okay. Even methane, such gases were present in the atmosphere, but there was no free oxygen. Oxygen was there, but this oxygen bound to the carbon. So this type of environment was present. So there were no free oxygen molecules. We know that oxygen is a electronegative atom. So this electronegative atom can form bonds with the other molecules very easily. And whenever the oxygen is whenever oxygen is there, so interacts with the other molecules and breaks their bonds and forms the bonds. Because of this, we don't see the formation of a new compounds when oxygen is present. Since oxygen was not present, absent, it's completely not in the free form. So the new compounds were formed. New compounds formed during the early period of the Earth. Okay, so this is one aspect where we have to look into the temp what conditions are there. So high temperatures there, and gases are such like these are there. So either solar nebula, as I said, no, which contains hydrogen, helium, and nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide, such things are there. Okay, and also, as I said, no, some rocks also, such structures, elements which are heavy, so they were part of these rocks. Okay, so this oxygen was present in these rocks also, not just in the form of the compounds with the other atoms. Okay, that oxygen was also part of these rocks in the form of the oxides. Okay, like ferrous oxide, like nitrous oxide, okay, sulfur oxides. So in that form, the rocks also contains the these type of oxides. So when they become part of they when they were when uh, they were part of this central this core region, the central core region of the either sun or the earth. So because of the high temperatures inside, because of that gravitational force and chemical reactions, so these oxides are yeah, these oxides they started producing they started releasing the oxygen inside of the environment. So inside of that even the hydrogen was present. Because of that, so even the water in the vapor form was present inside of the earth. The core the core had the water in the form of the vapor. So these vapors were also released into the environment initially. Okay, so apart from these gases, water vapor was also present, but see, in the liquid form, in the vapor form also, still that is in the H2O form only. So the oxygen not separated from the hydrogen. So that was the situation. Okay, all these were present. Okay, later what happened, so the water vapors were there, and methane was there, and all those things are there. Then slowly oxygen formed on the earth. Oxygen, how the oxygen was formed? Because of the that the environment had this water vapors. So because of UV light or high temperatures, okay, the oxygen started forming in the environment. And once the oxygen is formed, so this oxygen interacted with the carbon, and when it interacted with the carbon of the methane, it started forming the carbon dioxide and also start forming the water. Okay, because the methane, that means this greenhouse gas levels reduced in the environment, so the temperature also reduced in the environment. So from this, so because of this, so high temperatures condition to the low temperature conditions, the conditions changed. Okay, so also because of this water, because now the water which is in vapors, okay, on the atmosphere, because of low temperature, it started precipitating and forming oceans on the earth. Okay, um, so because of when as next one is oceans packed with the dissolved iron. So earlier oceans they had very rich of the iron. So because of this, what happened, iron was very high in the oceans. So when oxygen started forming, okay, on one side temperatures reduced, because when methane turned into the CO2 and H2O. Okay, also because of these no these temperatures and UV light, also some cyanobacteria like organisms, they started using the water for photosynthesis, and they produce the oxygen. So because of the when the oxygen started forming, okay, earlier, as I said, no, this is a reducing environment. There was no free oxygen. Oxygen either bound to carbon, like in the carbon dioxide form, or it bound to the water in the form of H2O. okay, or it may be the sulfur dioxide, okay, nitric oxide. It's a bound form of oxygen. There was no free oxygen. So now this oxygen, because of these reactions, now the oxygen levels increased in the environment. When the oxygen levels increased, so this oxygen started oxidizing the all the iron present in the oceans. So initially, completely after iron completely saturated by the oxidation of the oxygen, okay, then the oxygen concentration started increasing in the environment. When the oxygen environment started increasing the environment, um, we then the organisms aerobic organisms and anaerobic organisms, when we see these anaerobic organisms, they started facing anaerobic organisms, they started facing the problem because of the high oxygen. Okay, as I said, no, initially there was a reducing environment. Because of the reducing environment, so there was no oxygen. So this methane, okay, this carbon dioxide, so nitrogen oxide, they started forming new compounds. So in this process, they started forming some amino acids, they started forming nucleic acids, they started forming carbohydrates, all such things, okay. And even the lipids also formed by the combination of these all elements, okay. And all these chemical reactions that took place in the atmosphere as well as in the water. And so now the water contains all these compounds. So when all these compounds are present inside of the water, so initially these lipid molecules, they started forming some circular structures or some kind of some type of structures inside of the water. So by wrapping all these chemicals inside of it, and these structures are called conservatives. So these conservatives are just, they had some all the organic molecules, but they did not have the ability of they did not have the ability of undergoing division to produce the new cells. So after conservatives, so primitive cells were formed. Primitive cells formed from these conservatives, and these primitive cells different from conservatives by having the ability of producing the daughter cells. Okay, in this process, the primitive cells, then they started forming the aerobic bacteria and also the anaerobic bacteria. When the oxygen levels become more, then this anaerobic bacteria, they faced a challenge because of the more oxygen. And aerobic bacteria, they started they started living better in this aerobic environment. Okay, as I said, no, this iron, initially the iron is completely saturated by the oxygen released by the released by released by the splitting of water by cyanobacteria life organisms, okay, that leads to great oxidation event. Okay, the oxygen catastrophe, as I said, no, that when the oxygen levels increase, so that became a problem to anaerobic organisms. And aerobic organisms, they thrived very well in these conditions, okay. This is a Huronian glaciation event. So, in what this Huronian glaciation event tells that, no, so methane, when it reacted with the oxygen, so it formed CO2 and H2O. Because of this, the greenhouse gases levels decreased in the atmosphere. And because of this, no, the water present, when the temperatures decrease, so the earth started forming even the ice at some parts of it, okay. So ozone also, when the oxygen levels became more in the atmosphere, so because of UV light interactions, this oxygen started forming the ozone also. Then this ozone stopped the entry of this UV rays into the earth. That means the earth is completely shielded by this particular ozone layer, okay. So this is another one. So once the prokaryotic cells formed in the form of the aerobic bacteria and anaerobic bacteria, see the aerobic bacteria, so this aerobic bacteria, it started a symbiotic life with a prokaryotic cell, so with another prokaryotic cell, okay. When it started aerobic bacteria, when it started a life like no, as I said, no, it's a symbiotic life. So that lead to formation of the this particular eukaryotic cells with the different cellular organelles. So that lead to the formation of the even the eukaryotic organisms. So this this particularly the formation of organic compounds by using that gases like methane, carbon dioxide, and so Miller and Urey, Perrin Haldane, they proposed this chemical evolution, and Miller and Urey, they they proved this by conducting experiments in the laboratory that the primitive conditions on Earth, like reducing environment, could synthesize organic materials like amino acids and other organic materials. So they proved in the laboratory, and from this we they stated that okay, the life was not created by the god. Life was formed by the chemical molecules because of the conditions that existed at the time of formation of the earth. Okay, this is completely about the formation of the life on the earth. Once the life formed on the earth, so how these different forms that we see today formed from that this type of the primitive life that explained by organic evolution, how the initial organisms how the initial organisms could produce this many different types of the species, so that explained by the chemical evolution. So that we will discuss in, sorry, that is explained by the organic evolution, that we will explain the next video. Thank you so much.